I faked my death to escape an abusive situation. 7 years later, I broke the one rule I gave myself and showed up to watch the service. My name is not something I'm going to tell you. I've been living under a different name for 7 years, and I'm not going to undo that here, even on an anonymous account, even in a space built for confessions. What I can tell you is the shape of what happened and what it cost, and what I did that I promised myself I would never do. 7 years ago, I was in a situation that was killing me. Not quickly, not all at once, but the way some situations kill you, slowly, through accumulated damage, through the erosion of who you were before it started. The people involved had connections and resources and a particular kind of ruthlessness that made conventional exit strategies dangerous. I had tried the conventional ways. They had not worked. I'm going to be deliberately vague here, not because I want to be, but because specificity could compromise the safety I've spent 7 years building. The decision to disappear completely was not made lightly or quickly. I spent 2 years planning it the way you plan a military withdrawal, carefully, accounting for every contingency, burning nothing down that you don't need to burn, leaving no trail that leads where you're going. I had help. Someone who understood how to navigate certain systems, who owed me something, who agreed that what I needed to do was the least bad option available. I don't want to overstate the drama of what I did. I didn't fake a car accident or a drowning or anything cinematic. I just became unavailable. I stopped answering. I moved. I became someone else in a different state with a different name and a different life built from the ground up. I left behind people I loved. That is the part I don't speak about often because speaking about it makes it real in a way I don't always have the capacity for. I made one rule for myself. I do not go back, not for any reason. The moment you go back is the moment the whole structure of your disappearance becomes fragile. I knew this. I had told it to myself 10,000 times. For 6 years, I kept the rule. I built something. A job that uses my real skills under a different name. An apartment with plants on the windowsill. Friends who know the version of me that exists now. A life that is genuinely mine even if it was constructed from scratch out of necessity. Then about 2 months ago, I received information, through channels I still monitor from a distance, the way you monitor a perimeter, that a memorial service was being held. A gathering of people from my former life, convened to mark my absence, to grieve in whatever way people grieve when they don't have a body and don't know the real story. I broke the rule. I told myself I wouldn't. I went back and forth for 10 days. I made a decision not to go, and then I woke up the next morning and got in my car. I drove 11 hours. I drove through 2 states and a night and a sunrise, and I arrived in the city I used to live in before dawn. The service was held at a church I had never attended, chosen presumably for its size. I arrived early and sat in the last row on the right side, close to the back wall, wearing clothes I'd bought specifically for this. Nothing I'd wear in my current life, nothing distinctive, a gray coat and dark glasses inside like the cliché I apparently was. People came in. I recognized some of them. I recognized one person who had been particularly instrumental in the situation I'd been escaping, walking in as if they had a right to grieve, and I had to do the work of controlling my face in real time. I recognized others who had meant something to me, who I had loved, who were there genuinely, who were wearing the looks that people wear when they're not performing grief but experiencing it. There were remarks. I won't describe them in detail because that feels like a violation of the people who gave them, who didn't know they had an audience in the back row. What I will tell you is that hearing yourself described in the past tense by people who loved you is one of the most disorienting experiences I can imagine, and I spent considerable time doing very controlled breathing to stay present in my body and not dissolve into something that would draw attention. I stayed for the entire service, 45 minutes. I watched people stand, sit, sing, bow their heads. I watched someone who had been one of my closest friends cry in a way that I had to look away from because I couldn't absorb it and remain functional. I left before people began to move toward the exit. I went to my car. I sat in the parking lot of a gas station 3 blocks away, and I stayed there for 2 hours because I was not capable of driving. What I felt was not a single thing. It was a compressed collection of things. Grief for the life I'd had to leave. Something that felt uncomfortably close to guilt, even though I had done what I had to do. A strange and painful tenderness for the people in that church who deserved to know the truth and whom I could not tell. And underneath all of it, quiet and constant, the relief of the person who knows they made it out of something that would otherwise have destroyed them. I drove 11 hours home. I walked into my apartment, made tea, and sat on the couch and stared at the wall for a very long time. I have not told anyone who knows me now that I went. The person who helped me disappear does not know. The people in that church do not know. Now you know. I broke the rule and I'm still here. The structure held. I think it held because I did nothing except observe. Because I am not a ghost choosing to haunt. I'm a person who needed to mark a moment in the only way available to me, who needed to be present for something I couldn't be present for publicly, who needed to sit in a room full of the people I'd lost and acknowledge, at least to myself, that they mattered. They mattered, they still do. That is the part of leaving that nobody tells you. You don't stop loving the people you leave. You just have to carry it differently. In a back row, in a gray coat, 11 hours from home, breathing very carefully, staying very still. There are things from that service that I've carried home with me that I didn't expect to. Details that lodged somewhere and won't come out. The flowers. Someone chose flowers I would have chosen if I'd chosen them myself. I don't know how to account for that, whether it was coincidence or whether the people who knew me well enough to choose the right ones. But sitting in that back row and recognizing the flowers was a particular experience I hadn't prepared for. One of the people who spoke said something I've been turning over ever since. They said, "The thing about her, about this person we lost, was that she made you feel like you were the most interesting version of yourself when you were around her, like she could see some potential in you that you hadn't quite got to yet." I don't know if that's true of me. I think it might have been true of me once, before the years of being careful and small and invisible made me into a different shape. I would like it to still be true, I'm not sure. I've been asking myself, since I drove home, whether the trip was worth breaking the rule for. The answer I keep arriving at is yes and no and neither. It was worth it in the sense that I needed to do it, and doing it discharged something that had been building for years. It was not worth it in the sense that it made certain things more real that I had managed to hold at a slight distance, and the reality of them is harder to live with than the distance was. The people in that church deserved better than what happened to them. They deserved the truth. I can't give them that. What I can do is continue to be, in the life I have now, the person that the speaker was describing. To be someone who sees the best version of the people around me. To earn in this new life some of what I apparently gave in the old one. That's not nothing. It might be enough to build on.